directly across from Steve Rubin. Michael Bernat, someone who's been playing the game for a long time. Is he from? He's from the New England area originally.
I'm not sure that sounds right to me. Although with the Andrew Luck jersey, it's apostasy. Excuse me.
Oh yeah, actually you're right. He might be. He's like the Midwest version of Mike Sigrist.
Looks at Raf Kapushin and probably my favorite card in the format, Jaya's Immolating Inferno, which is I think.
So there was a third legendary sorcery going around the table.
I don't pass those cards. I just always take them. And Kai Buddha actually just texted me to correct the record that Yawgmoth's File Offering actually exiles itself when you cast it. So no recursion for Steve. I have to refine my rating of Steve's deck, and I'm changing it to a 10 from a 10 after learning that. So Shivan Fire he looks at, and Raf Kapushin. Interesting. Wow. So he goes with Raf Kapushin over Shivan Fire and Jaya's Immolating Inferno, committing himself to two picks. So, again, we talk about differing pick orders. That's a card that I think on just in a vacuum is worse than Jaya's Immolating Inferno and Shivan Fire. Michael must really like those white-blue decks. And look at this. He's immediately rewarded with another Raf Kapushin as if he knew that it was going to be there.
Double Raf.
And obviously it looks brilliant now.
Now, kind of funny because both of the legendary sorceries in Paul's deck, in Steve Rubin's deck, in this alternate universe where you got to draft that deck, exile themselves. But Jaya's Immolating Inferno, you could actually record that.
And so now Michael kind of gets to draft this deck on easy mode. Right now he's already got 2 gold, white, blue, Azorius bombs. So he's just going to be taking white and blue cards for the rest of the draft. He's hoping to not have to deviate from that plan.
So there we see Rona, Academy Drake, Grow from the Ashes, that Mending of Dominaria we talked about when we were watching Steve's draft. There's that Sentinel of the Pearl Trident, and he's reading that.
And Mending is a card that I've heard alternately described as one of the best cards in the format and a poor man's soul salvage. So there's some differing opinions on Mending of Dominaria.
Oh man, that is a card that speaks to me on a just micro cellular level.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love that card. But we see Michael make the Academy Drake pick over some of the more powerful cards in the pack. This is what happens sometimes.
And then a second Academy Drake here.
Yep.
Skittering Surveyor. Wow. Instant Speed Skittering Surveyor, something I can interest you in?
Yeah, Skittering Surveyor is a better card than Academy Drake, but he's Michael's in that sort of white-blue flyer strategy, and it's hard to do much better than Academy Drake.
Once again, white-blue tempo.
White-blue tempo, excuse me.
And he is looking at the Drake. Man, hard-pressed always to pass the Skittering Surveyor, but... Yeah, he's got basically everything he's taken so far flies. What do you look for to sort of? Is there anything that helps you, win the race on the ground?
Yeah,
there's some essential cards you need for this deck.
You want any kind of sort of ground defense is good. Cheap interaction, things like Blink of an Eye or Gideon's Reproach are really really strong at dealing with annoying cards like Baloth Gorger that are chunking you for huge points of damage while you're chipping in with the air. But really, your ground creatures don't matter so much. You want kind of high-quality flyers, a good curve, stuff like Divination to tie the whole room together.
Is it true part of your contract to do coverage involves getting to watch drafters who love Divination?
Yeah, well, this draft is crazy with how many Divinations there were in the boosters. So
here we see a Syncopate. There's the Joyrich Familiar in the back. Everyone always change Torment. Nope, still not as good as I wanted to
be.
Still involves me losing half my life at some point.
Good pick here, I think, from Michael, the Vidalian Arcanist, over some other comparable power level cards. Vidalian Arcanist, he's not going to use the mana very frequently, but for his curve and to block your opposing 2 power creatures, it's really valuable.
How do you feel about a card like Short Sword here?
This is the Short Sword in a white-blue deck is where it really shines. Then if you end up with stuff like Relic Runner, with stuff like Sarah Disciple, you need those Short Swords.
Michael Burnett might be in the mood for some nonsense. He's got Joda up there.
Would surprise me. It's the thing with the Joda, it's not that powerful of a card. It's basically a phantom monster at the end of the day. We already saw him take an Academy Drake over a Skidding Surveyor, so that indicated to me that he was not interested in splashing. Now he's going to go the other direction and choose to maybe splash.
4 colors with the Zafran Void.
Maybe. Yeah. I like the Zalfrin Void more than most people. I've been roundly mocked for including that card in my decks, but I love a good scry.
Then you look at Joda Archmage Eternal, which he took. And again, he's, blue-white. He might be interested in splashing a Shivan Fire or a Goblin Barrage or something if it comes up at some point in the draft.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. If you're the kind of person who likes to splash in your white-blue decks, then I would recommend taking Skittering Surveyor when you have the option to, because otherwise those sort of old school, or I like to call them grimy splashes, where you just make 7/6/3 mana bases, that does not work in Dominaria. That's not the place that you want to be.
Now that's interesting, because that's often the counterpoint to Navigator's Compass is, well, don't play that. I would rather just see 7/6/3
right,
or 7/7/3 or something like that, and just put some lands in for your splash.
And my answer is don't do either of those things. Yeah, I'm going to go with neither.
An Excavator just rounding out the pack, staying largely on color here. Late Sentinel of the Pearl Trident. Nice for him to be able to save his Wrath.
Yeah, quite good in white-blue, and with things like Skittering Surveyor, with things like Wrath Capuchin, you can oftentimes get quite a bit of value out of that triggered ability.
So now we take a look at the deck.
Yeah, and some possibility as you look here, the white didn't really flow. Blue was the only color that he kind of felt like he was supposed to be in. He did get past a Wrath Capuchin, but then we didn't really see any of the premium white commons, the Gideon's Reproaches, or the Blessed Lights for the rest of the booster. So maybe he's thinking, maybe I'm more of a blue with a touch of red, touch of white, or blue-red with white, rather than blue-white with a touch of red or just blue-white. So I think what ends up happening a lot of the times in these drafts is when you look at pack 2, now the white's going to start to flow, right? Because as much as he was getting cut, the person to his left was getting even more cut from white. So really, there's barring opening something like a Lyra, there's almost no way the person to his left moved into white.
And it's always very interesting to me here, the sort of metagame within the draft. Also, it's an opportunity if the person to his right is white, he gets to punish that player this pack.
Right.
And maybe even, sometimes if you can exert your will there strongly enough,
move them out of it.
You can move them out of it.
Yep.
There's an interesting dynamic that always happens, especially at these potted draft tables.
Yeah, again, we brought it up before, but unlike in a league on Magic Online here,
on Sarah's Wings,
you will be playing against players in your pod.
Skittering Surveyor also in the pack. Is that at all close?
No, on Sarah's Wings is just too good. Yeah, even with the threat of getting 2-for-1 sometimes, on Sarah's Wings just threatens to run away with the game too quickly. And he has the ability to cast it at instant speed.
Which is insane. Just absolutely perfect. You get to pick your spot, your opponent's tapped out, slap that down on something, and you can steal a game with it.
Yeah, and we've noticed actually as Michael's been going through these boosters, he doesn't even filter the Skittering Surveyors to the front of the booster packs. He's not really even strongly considering them, right? So that's not a card that he values very highly at all.
His number 2 card there was Academy Drake.
Right.
Takes the Wings.
And now that he has a Wings, he might be looking to pick up a late Snapper at some point.
There's a Tiana Ship Captain. There's Gideon's Approach.
So here we mentioned before that we might see some white coming in pack 2, and here we're seeing
Caretaker,
a few good white cards now.
How do you like Sergeant of Arms?
Not so much in white-blue. Yeah, in a white-green or a white-black deck, occasionally in white-red where you have equipment, it's a card that makes most of my decks. In white-blue, I want to be doing other things. So it needs to either defend better on the ground or attack in the air, and going wide is not how I like my white-blue decks to win.
I kind of like it when I like to have one in these blue-white flyer decks, because I do like at some point to be able to just go, okay, I'm just going to put 3 blockers down. Call to the Cavalry. Knight of Grace. He's got a lot at force. I think the curve-wise you're going to go Knight of Grace, but how do those 2 cards line up for you just in a vacuum?
Yeah, both of them have disappointed me in the format, given my first initial evaluation. I think that, he needs the Knight of Grace here for curve considerations.
There's also a Shivan Fire, by the way, in the deck.
Oh, in the pack, yeah.
Yeah, in the pack that he could, again, if he's thinking about that red splash for Joda.
I think that the fact that he just saw 2 white cards in the booster before and now 2 white cards, I think he expects white to continue to flow for the rest of this pack, and he doesn't want to get in a situation where he can't play his 2 Wrath Capuchins. That's the real power level in his deck.
There's that Urza's Ruinous Blast. You know, the card that I'm looking at there is the Cold Water Snapper.
Yeah, both the Ruinous Blast and the Blink are just, I think, a little bit too much better. And, you know, if he had maybe a second Unsara's Wings or an Arcane Flight or something, but...
An Arcane Flight's going to come around the table for you.
Yeah, I think Blink of an Eye is too good here.
All right, he does take Blink of an Eye.
It's just so good, especially with Wrath Capuchin, because you're going to be saying go a lot, you know, to have things like that to punish your opponent for going for it.
Instant speed, Urza's Ruinous Blast, pretty exciting.
Pretty strong, but in you know, as opposed to Steve's deck earlier, he does not have as many legends to be able to turn it on, and Urza's Ruinous Blast is just not as strong of a card as Yawgmoth's Vile Offering.
Yeah, I mean, and often your opponent in this format has legends.
Yep. This is an interesting pick.
Deep Freeze versus Call the Cavalry.
Yep. You know, it looks like he's headed towards the Call the Cavalry. It's reasonable. I wouldn't classify that as a poor pick. I really like Deep Freeze in these white-blue tempo decks. So, you know, I think that it's a card that I happen to value quite a bit, but certainly reasonable.
Look at this. Divination, Pegasus Courser, Adamant Will. And Pegasus Courser, card that he doesn't expect to, not really expecting to see in Pack 3. So if he wants to get that in here, he's going to take it now.
Yeah, I think Pegasus Courser for a deck of this nature is the single best white common that he could have. Better than Blessed Light, better than Gideon's Reproach. It blocks effectively, then it comes around and sends your Knight of Grace to the air. It really does everything that he wants it to do.
Another Blink. How many Blink of the Eyes were at this table?
A lot. Yeah, a lot of Blink of an Eye, a lot of Divinations, and a lot of Mending of Dominarias, it seems like.
Poor Fungal Plots. No love.
Yeah, Michael's deck is coming along well. Yeah, it seems like his colors are flowing. He's got a good curve. He's got plenty of interaction. He's got the evasion spells we mentioned before. The only difference between his deck and Steve's is Steve had that ultra high end, all of the broken rares that he was able to open and get past. So, but Michael's deck is certainly plenty good, and he has to be very happy with the way things are going so far.
Looking at an Opt, or you can have a Blood Tallow Candle, Joyous Familiar, but just wants to shrink his deck a little bit here.
I love an Opt. I love an Opt in this format. I love that it can help you curve out. I love when you have a few really high-powered cards like Wrath Capuchin, being able to get through to them.
The most Sentinels of the Pearl Trident I've ever seen.
Yeah, some really funky packs. I wonder if anyone was trying to draft the Sentinels of the Pearl Trident Mending of Dominaria deck.
Oh, I'm going to fire up Magic Online while we're off this round. I might try that. There's a Voltaic Servant. Card I've actually been kind of surprised by. Just a reasonable body, but then there's some situations where you just get to icy twice.
Yeah.
You get the icy on offense and icy on defense because of it. Pretty spectacular. There's that Arcane Flight.
At the Pro Tour, I made a speculative Voltaic Servant pick, and then I did open Traxos in Pack 3. So, wow.
Oh, well, it gets the Urza's Ruinous Blast anyway. Look at that. So 4 legendary sorceries. I think we also saw a Kamal's Druidic Vow go around the table forever, as it should. That card's just terrible.
Yep. So it would be interesting if Michael is faced with the choice of getting a third legend in Pack 3, which would turn on really that Urza's Ruinous Blast as a strong card. A lot of times what happens is you get a shot at a Tetsuko or something of that nature, but you're forced to take it over something even stronger. So
there we get a look at the deck, how it's coming together. So we talked about the idea that, if Steve Rubin could have pushed a button at the end of Pack 2 to end the draft, he would have. I don't think Michael Bernat is at that same stage.
No, but he's still in really good shape moving into Pack 3. He can have a very high expectation that blue, one of the stronger colors in Dominaria, is going to flow in Pack 3, and there aren't glaring holes in his deck. Power level's fine, curve is fine, he has evasion, he's got interaction, he's got a theme. So he's certainly very, very happy, and he's relaxed going into pack 3. It's not like one of those decks like we saw Shahar drafting, where if he doesn't get a grow from the ashes, the deck doesn't function. It doesn't do anything. So,
what's he looking for now in pack 3?
Power level. I mean, really wants power level, which either means really, really strong rare level cards, or more legends to turn on that Urza's Ruinous Blast, which, as you mentioned, at instant speed, can do some work.
You've done a pretty good job of summoning cards. What card? Give me a specific card for us to look out for in these packs.
I mean, certainly if he's just inventing a card from scratch, he would try to open Teferi, the Hero of Dominaria here for sure. It's also worth noting that the Onsera's Wings does allow him to turn on that Ruinous Blast as well.
Oh yeah,
very
absolutely.
Unreliable way to do it though, because you're relying on your creature both surviving, and if you're sticking it and surviving, you're kind of winning anyway. Right. You probably don't need to cast his Ruinous Blast.
Cold Water Snap or something he'd like to see in this third pack?
Yeah, possibly.
Where he can just sneak one in there?
Possibly, and we're talking power level. Assembling power level is definitely a feasible path to do that as well.
But I feel like you're obligated once you have the Sarah's Wings. There's Knight of New Benalia. How about Embolus Clutches? How does that fit into your power level rankings?
Yeah, that's certainly one of the top 5 or 6 cards you could open.
By the way, that also turns on Urza's Ruinous Blast. That turns the creature into a legend.
Yeah, and now that Urza's Ruinous Blast goes from maybe to it's definitely going to make his deck and actually probably be quite good. Instant speed in Bolus's Clutches can interest you in that.
And Gideon's Reproach, not even close to being in the discussion here.
Right.
Just control magic, been good for 25 years.
Yeah, and he can't, unfortunately, have any hope of tabling it.
That's a nice card to open in the beta draft.
Yes.
Has anyone talked about Control Magic?
Luis has been talking about opening Control Magic a lot, yes.
Oh, I forgot about how good that card. Remember when Mind Control was unfair at 5 mana? There's an Academy Journey Mage, a really nice card for him to pick up. Also looking at that Daring Archaeologist.
Daring Archaeologist is probably the card that has come down the most in my estimation since the set first came out. You think, okay, it's a hill giant with 2 very relevant pieces of text. Those cards are almost always quite good. The amount of times you actually are able to return an artifact to your hand are rarer than it might seem. So we see Michael filtering the Journey Mage to the front, and I think that's exactly the kind of card he wants in his deck.
All right, here we go. Academy Journey Mage. My most drafted common on Magic Online.
And that's a pick that I strongly agree with, and I like the way Michael is navigating this. And it shows the evolution of the format. Never would have thought to take that over what looks like a really powerful 4-mana rare earlier on in the format, but nice pick, and shows me that obviously he knows what he's doing.
More divinations to be had. Wow, there's a Pegasus Course. Wow. And there's Denethor. Wow. That just gives him that critical mass of legendary creatures he needs. I mean, it's also a terrific card. It also reduces the cost of casting in Bolus's Clutches.
Yeah.
It does so much for him in this deck. He has to take it over the Pegasus Courser.
Yeah, no doubt that Michael's deck is really, really starting to come together here.
All right.
And we talked about Steve's deck being a 10. Michael's deck is extremely good now, and it's starting to seem like these boosters might have just been really overpowered.
Are we in 9 range yet?
I mean, think about it, right? We've watched 2 of the drafts here.
Invoke the Divine is a fine card here.
Yeah, sometimes even a main deckable card in the right situation.
Yeah, the main decking Disenchants is the most nostalgic aspect of Dominaria draft for me.
We've watched 2 drafts right now, and we have seen a Multani, multiple Mending of Dominarias, and a Jaya Zimbalani Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
And we've seen 2 great decks, including none of those cards. There's also a Fight with Fire, an Adelies. Those are all at other decks at the table, other than the 2 that we think are excellent.
So maybe if we have to grade these decks on a curve, considering some of the power of the other cards we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an Academy Drake.
And I've certainly already revised down my estimate that Steve is 50% to 3-0 the table. I would that number is dropping rapidly.
Yeah, Michael Bernat can just run his opponents over here.
Yeah, this is a close pick here.
What's the other card you're thinking about?
There was a Wizard's Retort, and just given the quality of cards that he's been passing, I think he has a Syncopate. I don't know if he picked up a Retort so far, and he has certainly plenty of Academy Drake type action in his deck. But look, Academy Drake, a better card than Wizard's Retort, so can't fault him for making that pick.
Well, there's a Benelish Honor Guard, and that's a great curve filler for him.
Yeah, and a card that is very likely to be a 3-2 or a 4-2 pretty often.
And then with it combined with a Pegasus Courser, can really close a game out very quickly.
Yes. Benelish Honor Guard, like a lot of these white cards and blue cards that we were talking about earlier, not the kind of card you just want to stick in every deck, but this is the right home for it.
Well, sometimes they can just trade for a Relic Runner
when
they don't have a start trigger for it.
Oh my
God, a Cloud Reader Sphinx. This is insane.
Yeah. So
that's a card people are talking about whether you would first pick that or Serra Angel.
Wow.
And, for a lot of people, Cloud Reader Sphinx had jumped ahead of Serra Angel.
Crazy.
And so to see this card this late is stunning to me.
Yeah, we had a strong suspicion in Pack 3 that blue was going to flow, given the way Pack 1 came. That being said, you can never expect to get a Cloud Reader Sphinx that late. A card that,
certainly not past like week 1 of the format.
Right.
Man, now I am slamming that Pierce the Sky.
With you there.
I am just, it's going to thud onto the table.
I would show it to everyone.
I would, me too.
Rip it up and then throw it.
Yeah. Just lick it and stick it to my forehead.
Now, I haven't checked the convocation regulations on that recently, but I don't think you can tear up a card at the table.
Yeah, no, you can't do that. But I would definitely very enthusiastically pick it.
Yes.
How's that? And then tear it up off camera.
So he takes the Knight of Nubenalia over the opportunity to defensively draft another copy of Pierce the Sky, which makes me think that he might feel his curve needs to actually start that Knight of Nubenalia, which is possible.
And again, another card with Pegasus Courser that just hits very hard and closes a game out.
Great point.
And trades early if your opponent has a fast start with some pretty, 2-3 is a common number for 3 drops in this format, and it actually trades up from 2 to 3 here.
And sometimes you just need to trade off for a Keldon Raider. I mean, these white-blue decks, they're a lot of your creatures are undersized, and you're beating them with evasion, and sometimes it's like, what do I do about a 4-3 creature? Well, Knight of Nubenalia can handle that problem.
All right, so as we're winding down these last couple of just random picks, Board the Weatherlight actually could hit in his deck.
Yeah, but Befuddle actually is kind of nice in these decks too. When you can say go with Wrath a lot, you can. The amount of times you set up 2-for-1s with Befuddle, it happens quite a bit in this format.
A card, Paul. This is a card I know to play around when I play Paul on Magic Online now. This is clearly a card he has a lot of time for. Give me a grade for this deck now. As we're done here, this deck, I would, not having not seen Steve's deck, I would have probably called this a 10 of 10.
Yeah, and I personally, in a vacuum of all the Dominaria sealed decks, I would guess like 8.5, 9 would have been my ranking. The power level of the cards and the boosters seems to be really high. So I think that, again, if we're grading on a curve, we're going to have to update that a little bit and say that Steve's deck is probably more like 8.5, 9, and this deck is more like a 7, 7.5.
Wow.
But both are going to be really happy. Both, probably at this point think that they're going to be able to get the 2-in-1 that they need.
Both of them could very well get smashed by a Multani.
That's